Hello, everybody. Welcome to Michael's Record Collection. Big treat for you this week. I'm going to talk a little Iron Maiden with none other than Uncle Steve from Uncle Steve's Iron Maiden Zone. Thank you for your time today, sir.
You're welcome. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. I've been wanting to do an Iron Maiden show for quite some time. My favorite heavy metal band, and
Awesome.
I figured what better way to start talking about Iron Maiden in my collection than hitting up the 40th anniversary of Number of the Beast. It turned 40 in May, but your show is certainly one that I listen to, to get my Iron Maiden fix, and
Awesome.
I enjoy that. And I wanted to try to kind of pick your brain a little bit about this podcast you've got going on. It's Uncle Steve's Iron Maiden Zone. How long have you been doing this now?
Been doing it now for about 2.5 years.
Okay. And what brought this on? Obviously, your love of Iron Maiden, but what made you think I'd really like to do a podcast about this?
I was doing I was in my mind. I had a podcast set for 5 or 6 years. I wanted to do it, and had talked to a friend about it, and just it's the hardest part is getting started usually.
Hmm.
And I started out originally, and it wasn't called Uncle Steve's Iron Maiden Zone. It was Uncle Steve's Rock and Metal Zone, because I was just like, I want to focus on lots of bands.
Hmm.
And so I did that, and then I decided I wanted to do I was like, Maiden's my favorite, so let's do a full month of Maiden.
Hmm.
And I was like, I'm going to do it different than anybody. I'm even going to change the name. I'll change it to Uncle Steve's Iron Maiden Zone for a month, and I was just going to go back.
Uh-huh.
And I really enjoyed doing it. And then I just thought, well, you know what? I can do whatever I want anyway. And I can, if I wanted to talk about a different band, we talk about different bands from time to time. So, there's no, no one's paying me to do it. So no rules, I guess.
That's right. It's your show. You do what you want, man.
Yeah,
You do you, as they say. Um,
exactly.
what is your Iron Maiden origin story? When did you first become aware of the band? How did you get into them? What was your first Iron Maiden memory?
Oh gosh. I was into bands like Kiss and Wasp a lot back in the mid 80s. And I remember on the school bus one day, I was having an argument. I don't know how familiar you are with Wasp or Blackie Lawless as a bass player,
Hmm.
but he was just a serviceable bass player. And I got in a pretty rough argument with the guy on the school bus that Blackie Lawless was a way better bass player than Steve Harris. I didn't even know who Steve Harris was. I just knew this guy liked Iron Maiden. I was like, man, Blackie Lawless is better than he is. So he's like, next day he brings me a cassette to school. He brings me Peace of Mind. And, I only remember listening to it. You remember back in the day when you listen to cassettes and when they'd get bad and they'd fade in and out and in and out. And that's the way that was. But I heard enough of it to know, oh, I thought they were with their album covers. I just thought, oh, that's too heavy for me. And when I heard it, I was like, oh, this is accessible stuff. And so I went and, well, it wasn't too long after that, a guy at school got in trouble, he said, hey, if you write me a 10-page paper, I'll give you this cassette. And it was a Live After Death cassette. And so I'm like, okay, sure. So I wrote the 10-page paper and he gave it to me. And that was my introduction to Iron Maiden right there.
Wow. What was the 10-page paper about?
I have no idea. I just know, to do that, he had small handwriting. And so I had to mimic his handwriting, and it was just, and 10 pages front and back. So it wasn't just one page front, one page back. It was 1, 2, but it was worth it. It started something.
I have to admit, I did not expect your Iron Maiden origin story to include academic fraud.
Well, it does.
It's interesting. My Iron Maiden origin story is not too dissimilar time frame wise than yours. I was aware of Run to the Hills on FM radio, and I liked it. I didn't really know a lot about Iron Maiden until MTV came along, and I
Sure.
saw the video and I saw what the guys looked like, and it's like, okay, these guys aren't so scary. And
Right.
and I remember when Flight of Icarus came out. At the time, my father was a truck driver, and he would have me unload his semi for like $50, which was huge money back in those days for a kid.
Oh yeah.
But probably he was saving $50 from having some other adult do it.
Yeah.
But we used to go to Columbus, which was about a half an hour drive, unload his truck, and then usually go to like this Perkins and eat
Okay.
lunch afterwards. And there was a little strip mall next to this place, and I knew there was a record store in it. So I asked him, hey, can I go to the record store after we eat? And he's like, okay, sure. And I picked up the cassette of Peace of Mind, which was my first Iron Maiden album that I owned. And
Okay.
I remember driving home in his semi and asking him, can I put this in the tape deck? And he's like, oh, okay. I mean, my dad's a country guy and a like a 50s and 60s doo-wop kind of guy, and he had no idea what to expect. And so, the drum break opening of Where Eagles Dare starts up, and he makes it through that. And then maybe one or two bars into the guitar, he hits the eject button and says, I just can't. But the
That's
whole way
funny.
home, I'm replaying that little, I don't know, 15-second clip in my mind, and I can't wait to get it home and listen to
Yeah, absolutely. That's funny.
it. So, yeah, so we both came in right around the same time. Now, how many episodes have you done of your show now?
Oh
Keep count?
gosh. I do keep count. I think it's up near 150 or so.
What's interesting about your show is you'll have co-hosts or guests on from all over the world. I know you've had guys from down under in Australia. It
Yeah.
must be fun matching up. I know I've interviewed a guy from Australia before. It must be fun matching up those time frames so that you can record.
It is, and there's so many different time zones just in Australia, and I've had a guy from New Zealand, and like one guy in Australia, he's 15 hours ahead. There's a girl that's in Australia, she's 13 hours ahead, and the guy in New Zealand, he's 17 hours ahead, and it's really hard to make work sometimes, but it's okay.
Yeah, you make it work.
Yeah. Oh,
So, do you have a favorite Iron Maiden album?
yeah. I would say my favorite album, and this is definitely for anyone that listens to me, they know what I'm going to say, but it's very unconventional when I say my favorite Iron Maiden album is the 2006 A Matter of Life and Death.
Okay, that's an interesting one. I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
No, for me, I typically with a band, I will gravitate toward the first album that I bought from a band, and I think a
Yeah.
lot of people do that. But
Sure.
I would say it's kind of a toss up for me between Peace of Mind and Power Slave, and Number of the Beast is right there too. So probably those three are the top three, and on any given day,
Yeah.
one of them might edge ahead of the others. It's usually Peace of Mind or Power Slave.
Okay. Okay. I mean, they're all good albums, so
They are all good albums. So, um, what were your thoughts on the period without Bruce after obviously you came in to Iron Maiden when Bruce was in the band, had replaced Paul Diano, and then he left for a while. How do you view those albums?
they're a lot different. I mean, there was a lot going on during that time because you lost your iconic singer. Now, the two albums prior to that, No Prayer for the Dying and Fear of the Dark, they definitely were already kind of going downward. My personal opinion is, yeah, they were Fear of the Dark's as low as they got, in my opinion. So you lost Bruce, Adrian was gone, and he was, those are two big time songwriters.
Mm-hmm.
Steve Harris is going through a divorce. Martin Birch, their producer, from Killers through Fear of the Dark, he wasn't producing him anymore. He retired. So that's a lot of changes. Plus, the musical scene was so much different.
Yeah.
And then he goes and gets, he Blaze Bailey, who I'd never heard of. And Blaze, I don't know if you've ever heard Wolfsbane. I don't really listen to him, but they're really, I kind of describe them as like a UK version of kind of Van Halen in a way, like really fun party rock. And then he brings this guy who's got this upcoming band into his band, and he's like, okay, you can't be this. You can't be the upbeat, happy, fun guy because we're going to make a really depressing album. And I think that those two albums are good. I like. I'm not as X Factor's harder because it's just really it's tough to listen to, but I don't dislike the albums because of Blaze. I just think it was really almost a different band at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. You kind of got to take it the way, almost like it's a new band, but you have to give everybody their own due, because you can't expect the person to come in to be the same person as the person who left, and they're going to bring their own flavor to things. And you know that certainly bands like Judas Priest went through the same thing when they replaced Rob Halford for a period and that kind of
Sure.
thing. So Iron Maiden, we're going to talk a little bit about this album, Number of the
Number
Beast.
of
This here is the
Beast.
98 remaster, and it's got an extra track on it. They put Total Eclipse in between Gangland and Hallowed Be Thy
Right.
Name.
Yeah.
And the this is interesting because it's this is from the BMG Music Club.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
which means like I got a bunch of Iron Maiden all at once on CD when I upgraded to CD, and you
There you
know
go.
I didn't pay for any of them because that's not what you
Of
do with the
course.
BMG Music Club. And
Absolutely.
it's an enhanced CD, which was a like real gimmicky at the time, and it's got a multimedia section with Run to the Hills and Number of the Beast on it. So
Cool.
Iron Maiden's third studio album, the first with Bruce Dickinson after Paul Di'Anno was let go, and that was obviously an interesting time in the band's career because Samson had done some shows with Iron Maiden, and Samson
Yeah.
was Bruce Dickinson's band, and Rod Smallwood pulls Bruce aside after a festival and says, "What do you think of maybe joining the band?" And well, Bruce says, "Well, when I get the job, and I will get the job,
Yeah.
you know, you got to be ready because I'm going to give, I'm going to give pushback. I'm going to be honest. You know, I might be a little bit of a pain to work with, but it's all in
Sure.
service of the music." And I don't know if I'm assuming that you've probably read Bruce's autobiography.
Yeah. I have.
And I love that whole section of him joining the band and saying, well, does the dead guy walking know he's the dead guy walking yet? Does he know he's getting fired? It was an
Right.
interesting time for the band.
It certainly was. It certainly was. They were on an uphill trajectory at that point. Even with Paul, I mean, but it was quantum leap, from Paul, because Paul's definitely he was a good vocalist. He's a serviceable vocalist, but he fit more of that fast paced. I hate to use the word punk style because the first album, kind of had some of that,
Mm-hmm.
but Bruce was just a quantum leap into another stratosphere for them.
Yeah, and he enabled. I think that Bruce really enabled Steve to get more ambitious with his writing because
Absolutely.
he knew that Bruce could handle it, and it kind of changed things for the band moving forward. And then you're always going to get pushback when a band changes singers, and Paul there's still Paul fans out there who think that the first two albums are the pinnacle of Iron Maiden's output.
Indeed.
Bruce wasn't able to get any writing credits on this album because of some contractual issues with Samson, which makes it interesting because you kind of have to piece together things from interviews to find out what did Bruce really do on this album. But he had a hand in it for sure. It was also the last album with drummer Clive Burr, and I wanted to kind of get your opinion on that because it's everybody loves Nico. Obviously, Nico's a fantastic drummer, and but Clive had his own style. What did you think that Clive brought to the mix on these first few albums?
Oh man, Clive, his drumming is frenetic and it's fast paced, and there's just one thing that's really like Nico. He's got the big personality. It's impossible to not like Nico, unless you're just a grumpy old fart. But Clive, when you listen to Number of the Beast, a lot of the songs he does drum fills and it's all snare fills. He'll just da 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 da, and he just goes right back into it instead of. Whereas Nico, Nico does the fills. He's all over the place, and they both work. But yeah, I love Clive was more. Not that his drumming is easy to replicate, but he was more simple with what he did, and he was fantastic. I love his drumming.
Yeah, I like what Clive brought to, I mean, just the simple little fill with Run to the Hills at
Yeah, yeah,
just it's exactly what the song needs.
yeah. He's by his own admission, well, no. I heard a story one time where I think it was Brian Johnson of AC/DC was talking about Phil Rudd talking about, he said, well, I'm not a dental drummer. And then he goes, oh, dental drummer, what are you talking about? And he goes, every time a dental drummer, every time they see they hold, they think they got to fill it. And as soon as I heard that, I thought, that's Nico. Nico has, I mean, and I grew up when I got in, Nico was the drummer, and he's obviously been on the vast majority of their albums. But man, Clive Burr's his drumming is very pronounced, and it stands out, simple yet perfect for it. I love it.
Yeah, fantastic for this record, especially.
Yes,
this album was released on March 22nd, 1982 on EMI Records in the UK and Harvest and Capitol in the US, just a year and 1 month after Killers came out on February 2nd, 1981. Produced by Martin Birch, his same producer as Killers, his second of many with the band. It was recorded over 2 months in January and February of 1982 at Battery Studio in London, same as Killers. First Iron Maiden album to top the UK albums chart and make the US Billboard 200. Band lineup: Bruce Dickinson's first album as lead vocalist, Dave Murray and Adrian Smith on guitars, Steve Harris on bass, Clive Burr on drums, we mentioned, and 8 songs on the original release. And it kicks off with Invaders, 3 minutes and 20 seconds, written by Steve Harris, balls to the wall opener, and right away you hear Clive right at the start of this, the drum and guitar intro, and just a real in your face opening track to this is what we are, this is where we're going, and we're not the same Iron Maiden anymore. We're going to take this to a new level.
Oh yeah, it's aggressive. The verses in the song are very, very aggressive. I think this song has been unfairly characterized, though, because Steve Harris has come out over the years and said we should have had something better to open the album. I think Bruce has even echoed that. It's a really, really fantastic song. And because of those two guys saying, we could have done better, it's not the greatest song, it's kind of one of those deals where people just, it kind of snowballs, and now the fans even, like, Invaders, it's not that good. I've never had a problem. There's only one minor little tiny issue I have with it. And other than that, it's just a fantastic song.
All right, well, I'll spill it. What's your minor issue that you have with it?
The chorus. Invaders, do 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 do, pillaging, do 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 do. It just sounds like this happy thing, raping, do 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 do. It kind of just sounds a little, that one little bit just sounds a little too happy. So,
yeah.
It doesn't bother. I'll still listen to it. So
yeah, tonally, maybe a little bit of a mismatch with the lyrics and the music, but it's still a cool little run. Before and after Invaders, and I look at the songs on this album, and I don't really think there's too many songs you could really use as the opener for the album. You could use the 2 singles, but maybe they were a little worried that Number of the Beast starts out a little too atmospheric. Run to the Hills probably would have been a good album opener, but other than those 2, I don't see any of these other songs that I would have rather started the album off with.
Yeah, I've always, the one thing that people do talk about is they'll say, "Oh, well, I didn't even listen to that first. I listened to Number of the Beast first because I thought that was the opener." And then, I mean, really, it would have been just can you imagine just you open it up with that "Woe to you"? I mean, just that would have been, and the one thing that people, I think the other thing is Bruce doesn't really, he sounds good, but he doesn't, there's not like a signature moment, like whereas in, Number of the Beast, there's that part where he finally gets to that, just like, you're like, whoa, so that's the only, but you get it in the next song. You get some iconic Bruce in the next one.
Yeah, that we'll get to that scream in a bit, but
yes,
after the aggressive Invaders, you've got Children of the Damned. It's also by Harris. Slows things down a bit. It's almost the beginning of the song, guitar wise, it's almost like an Allman Brothers-esque guitar at the start of this. It's very different for Iron Maiden.
It's gorgeous, man. It starts, they played that on the Book of Souls tour. That's the last tour they played it on, and man, I was so happy to hear it. It's almost one of those songs you just kind of close your eyes and get lost in it. It's gorgeous, the intro.
Yeah, the guitar part is sort of, for me, it's like foreshadows the just the amazingly beautiful guitar in Revelations, where right after the beginning part where they go into that just really melodic double guitar part. It sort of precursors that, and it's kind of like this is where the seeds of that came from.
Yeah, good call. It's, the song is you get, because Bruce starts singing and he's kind of singing soft, and then he gets to the, when it gets to the chorus and he just belts out Children of the Damned. I think I imagine as a Maiden fan, that's the first time you go, whoa, this is a step up.
Yeah, that's where you realize, I mean, Invaders is fine, and then you get to that and you go, wow, this guy can actually really sing. And in a way that Paul didn't like you said, Paul was fine for what he brought to the band, but this does take it to a new level. And you get your first gallop on the album about 2.5 minutes into this song, where they kick into that gallop. They're just a patented Iron Maiden gallop that will, you'll come to Run to the Hills, you'll come to it in the Trooper. Just nobody does a gallop like Iron Maiden.
And that spot you're talking about where it gets, really sped up, and that's where I'm just listening to Clive play, and it's like he's like, hitting the cymbals with both drumsticks. He's like that. And then there's the dual lead line going on at the same time. And I love the dual lead, but man, listening to Clive, I'm just like, that is just perfection, the way he's doing that. I mean, you can't mess up a little bit there, because he was solid. Ooh, I love his playing.
Yeah, he really shines on that. And just a great contrast between the first two songs on the album, and it really shows where Steve wanted to take the band. It really shows where he wanted to go. Time changes, and something that the band continues to do today.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we get to the prison. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, I was going to say, it is a little reminiscent of, if you think of Remember Tomorrow from Killers, it does. It's kind of got the light, and then it's got where it jumps into the heavier bit too. So but here I think he's able to do, like you said, it helps Steve's writing, because he's really able to expand. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good. You're the guest, man. You got stuff to say. I didn't want to move on to the next one if you had more to add. But yeah, Remember Tomorrow, interestingly enough, the live version was a B-side for one of the singles on this album, with Bruce on vocals, and like maybe he'd only been playing it with Bruce, like maybe the band had only been playing it with Bruce like 3 or 4 shows before that one was recorded.
There's actually something funny about that, is they had the Made in Japan little EP, the live EP they put out. That song that they released on a B-side, it's a live version. It's Made in Japan's version, and all they did was take Paul's vocals out, and Bruce, because if you listen to it, it's funny because Bruce says things and talks in certain ways in the song that he normally wouldn't, but he's having to just replace the parts where Paul's voice was. It's pretty funny, but it's interesting that they wouldn't have just recorded it in a studio.
Yeah.
Instead, they just used the exact same track.
Yeah. Well, I guess they did what they had to do.
Yeah.
The Prisoner is song 3, and for me, this is the highlight of side 1 of the album. Adrian Smith and Steve Harris wrote this one, and the great story about Rod Smallwood, the manager, having to call Patrick McGowan to get his permission to use the spoken intro is fantastic. How Rod was tongue-tied trying to talk to this star actor, and they're like, well, you've talked to famous people before, and he's like, well, it's just you lot,
Exactly.
So he gets permission. He has to explain, yeah, we're a heavy metal band, we want to play. He's like, yeah, go ahead, do it. And,
whatever, just do it.
And I can't even imagine this song without that intro. I mean, if they hadn't gotten permission, I don't know what this would have done to the album, but it really sets a mood for the song.
It does. I think it could have worked without it, because it's another iconic drum intro from Clive Burr. And then it's musically, it's a fantastic song. This is another song the problem with doing a podcast is you start analyzing things way too much, and you start finding, like, I have a co-host, and she always says, I came on your podcast because I loved Iron Maiden, and I feel like all we do is bash them every now and then. We say things like I think this song is fantastic in every way, except to me the chorus is, because the way he sings the verses, I'm on the run, I kill to eat, I'm stopping now. It's pretty intense.
Yeah.
And then to me the chorus almost like it's like light and dark. It just goes real, kind of happy.
Yeah.
Like I almost could see Clive drumming like, not a prisoner.
Yeah. Hey, to me, this reminds me of, I mean, and this is where I feel like, a lot of people I talk to, they say Number of the Beast is their favorite Iron Maiden album. It's a very good album, but I think you pointing that out it shows that they hadn't quite yet mastered how to change tempos and change moods within a song and time signatures within a song without going too far the other way. I think that they were still kind of getting to where they ended up getting, and I think that speaks to some of that.
Yeah, that definitely is a good explanation for that. They do tend to have some abrupt changes, even as you go. Even now, some of the changes are just really, but as you go along with them, you just learn to. I love them. I just expect, all of a sudden, it's just the song either speeds up or slows down, or just it's great.
Yeah, we're not going to do 4/4 here. We're going to go 5/4. We're going to change something up.
Yeah.
And then the first side of the album closes with 22 Acacia Avenue, built on a song that Adrian Smith had from the band Urchin, and this was the longest song on side one, is 6.5 minutes. You don't get a lot of songs about prostitutes, but it's an interesting song too, because there's so many lyrically strange things in this song. There's like if you mention my name, maybe she'll, this is her job, but maybe she'll do it for free if you say that, that I sent you. And then at the end, there's this whole, I have to rescue this person from this life.
It is an interesting song, and you've mentioned it's being about a prostitute. 3 albums in, and this is their second song about a prostitute, because they had Charlotte the Harlot, this is really a continuation, kind of her. And but man, that song you're talking about, Countdown by Urchin, man, that's a good song too. I don't love a ton of that Urchin stuff, but that song is really cool. But yeah, it's I think this is my favorite. I can't say that. Children of the Damned is my favorite song on side one, but I think Acacia Avenue is really close. It's there's lots of where they're playing the music, and then all of a sudden it's everybody's got their vice, and then it just stops, and he just starts playing again. I love those little stops there. That's really cool.
Yeah, nobody changes mid song like Iron Maiden in heavy metal. I don't think. It's just it's sort of how they broke ground for bands like Metallica and bands that followed to kind of do those things and to stretch out and explore, and I think that some of those early moments where they start doing that is among their most interesting stuff from those first few albums. 22 Acacia Avenue is got some problematic lyrics by today's standards for sure.
Yeah, especially.
But it is a really great song, and musically it's fantastic. It is interesting that side 2 is where the album's 2 singles came from. You don't get that a lot, especially back in the album days. Now it's more singles oriented, with digital, but back then everybody tried to front load their albums with the singles, and Number of the Beast and Run to the Hills were the first 2 singles. In fact, Run to the Hills came out before the album did as a single, and here you go, side 2, you're starting off with your 2 singles.
I think it really shows how strong the album is, that you can that you could just put your singles on the B-side. It's because there's not really, the album, to me, it starts strong and it really never lets up. Yeah. It's there's some points that aren't quite as great, but man, it's a strong album.
Number of the Beast starts off side 2, and it's got that fantastic intro from Barry Clayton. Robert Burns wrote the poem Tam O'Shanter, which was partly what Steve Harris was writing this about, from the being chased by a beast kind of thing, and not knowing what's real and what's a dream. And he
Sure.
kind of also had a dream about the movie Damien Omen 2, which was a freaky movie. I will say that back in the 80s when I saw that movie, it freaked me out quite a bit. So I can imagine him having that kind of reaction to it. But Barry Clayton reads some Bible verses from Revelation, and just that real atmospheric opening that apparently Martin Birch made Bruce sing for like 4 hours before he got one that he liked. And so that then you get that wail, that one of the great Bruce Dickinson wails of all time. And you can just imagine him letting out all of that frustration of having to do that softer part for 4 hours.
Oh yeah, that had to tear your voice up doing that. And you can hear it. There's isolated. You can go on YouTube and find it as an isolated track, like where you can just hear the vocals, and you can hear it's just like he's going as hard as he can, as long as he can. At the end, it's just grisly. At the end, it's
a good word.
This song is fantastic too. I mean, there's a lot of aggressive verses, and this is another one that's aggressive. I mean, and this one doesn't really let up. The chorus, is very aggressive as well too.
Yeah. Adrian's riff is one of the great Maiden riffs of all time in this song.
Yeah.
Just amazing. This thing reached number 18 on the UK singles charts and number 19 in Ireland. It also charted again in 1990 and 2005. It was released as a single April 26th of 1982, and Martin Birch getting that scream out of Bruce and it was fantastic. It would be interesting if they had been able to afford Vincent Price instead of Barry Clayton, to see what would have changed, because it is a very Vincent Price type of intro, and it's kind of where our puritanical American society decided that these guys were Satanists and they needed to burn their records and things like that. And I never bought into that, because I was blessed with the gift of rational thought, and it's right here on the cover. You've already got, okay, Satan's pulling the strings here, but he's having his strings pulled by Eddie.
Yeah,
that goes to show why would they worship Satan if Eddie's the one pulling the strings?
Yeah, it's what they call it. They called it the Satanic Panic. I grew up in the South, and I remember going to school, and I mean, it wasn't Iron Maiden that someone said anything to me, but I remember a girl in my school telling me, well, you're going to go to hell if you listen to Kiss. And I just remember, and that still sticks with me. And that was in middle school.
Yeah.
I'm 50 years old now. So that's, I never understood that, I never understood it.
Yeah. The whole Knights in Satan service thing.
Yeah. I mean, look, I get it. I mean, I can see a person looking at the Number of the Beast, the album cover, and just seeing, oh, it's Satan. And then here, if you don't know the context of the lyrics, sure. I mean, you can, everything's open for interpretation, but it's just like, it helped them. It helped Maiden, it made everyone was like interested in it more after that. So
yeah. If you point out there's a controversy, people are going to check things out to see what the controversy is all about. And then they're going to go, hey, that's pretty good music.
Oh yeah, it's like those parental advisory stickers they started putting on, and bands used to say, we all wanted one because that's what the kids wanted to listen. They wanted to find something that had that on it. So
I mean, rock and roll is the music of rebellion. What's more rebellious than that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So hey, thanks, moral maturity.
Exactly.
It was great. Yeah, but if you just gave it any thought and kind of dove into it in any depth, you can't come to that conclusion. But I did like how Nico McBrain said that his backward masking on was it Still Life on Peace of Mind was basically a response to if they're going to be stupid about something, let's just give them something to be stupid about.
Yeah. And there's a bit in the lyrics though where he even talks about, I can't do this. I got to get away from this.
Yeah.
But then it's like it overtakes him. So it's just, but I'm like, it's a story. It's like, it's the same as watching a movie. People seem to make it okay. It's okay to watch a movie,
Mhm.
But man, if you listen to it in a song lyric, it's terrible. I
Right.
don't really get that. I've
If
never
you
got that.
if you play Satan in a movie, are you a devil worshiper? I mean, it's the same concept. It's like
It's
you're
entertainment.
yeah, you're writing stories and or song lyrics from a particular perspective, and you know, Steve's always been a storyteller, and
Yeah.
you don't tell it from Steve Harris's perspective. You tell it from the characters in the story.
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah.
but a fantastic way to open side two, and then you get to Run to the
Oh yeah.
Hills. The first single off the album was released in February of '82, February 12th, written by Steve Harris, and like I said, released a month before the album. It reached number 27 on VH1's list of the 40 greatest metal songs, and number 14 on their list of the greatest hard rock songs, which is interesting that it made it higher as a hard rock song than as a metal song. This
Yeah.
one went all the way up to number 7 in the UK. It charted in Ireland, Germany, and Australia. Again, you've got some lyrics that are probably a bit problematic for today's audiences, but still, this is my favorite song on the record and one of my favorite Maiden songs of all time, just probably because it was one of the first ones I heard, one of the first ones that I found, that really got its hooks into me, because this is a great song for hooks.
Oh yeah. It's very hooky. The melodies are great. I wrote it. I said, it's a fun song. And I said, well, maybe not if you consider the lyrics about white man, coming over here and, taking over the Native Americans, raping the women and wasting the men,
Yeah.
but I said, but it's catchy as hell.
Yeah.
It's the melodies are all over the song. The chorus, I'm not usually into the happy choruses, but man, this chorus is so great. It's so fun. You're live and they play it and the whole crowd is just screaming it's another iconic song. One thing we haven't mentioned about this album is, we obviously mentioned Steve Harris, but his bass playing,
Mhm.
there's very few bands where the bass playing is literally up in the mix, just like the guitars are.
Yeah.
And there's so much great, like this song has some really fantastic bass playing in it too. So
Yeah. Some nimble fingers by Steve Harris for sure. Again, Steve is telling this story from different perspectives. He's telling it from the
yeah,
Cree. He's telling it from the U.S. cavalry soldiers' perspective, and it gives the chorus a different flavor depending on what the verse was, because
yeah,
the verse where it's told from the Cree perspective is, we got to run to the hills, run for our lives, and then it's the cavalry telling them to run to the hills, run for their
yeah,
lives, and
yeah,
really kind of one of the first times that Steve and the band got a little political.
yeah, yeah. It is. But it's a true statement. And
Mhm.
the one other thing that you can't mention it enough on this album is Clive Burr's drumming on this song is just insane.
Yeah.
As fast as he's playing those verses, golly, man, I'm one of the, I've got a friend and me and him both are almost on the side of, they should have kept Clive Burr, but you don't really know if the direction, it's almost like comparing Bruce with Paul Di'Anno, because Paul was a great singer and Bruce is a great singer, but Bruce could take them to another level with his singing, whereas Nico might have probably been able to take him to a different level with his drumming. But man, I would like to have seen what would have happened with Clive in the band. See where they would have went.
It would have been interesting. There's an alternate Earth somewhere out there where he stayed in the
Yeah.
band. It'd be interesting
Yeah,
to see
exactly.
how they did. But yeah, it's looking back now, it's so hard to imagine Clive drumming on Where Eagles Dare or Flight of Icarus,
Oh yeah.
songs that I've air drummed a million times.
Yeah.
I know I wouldn't have had to go to quite so many different
Exactly.
air
You
drums.
could have stayed in one spot.
Yeah.
Do all your snare fills.
Yeah, but I mean, there's absolutely no denying that
Oh man.
that really helps make that song "Run to the Hills" cook.
He's so good. He was so good. It's frustrating too sometimes because Nico doesn't play him the way that Clive played him, and even in live, he'll. It's frustrating sometimes to me as a fan because I want to hear him. So there's they had a box set that came out about 20 years ago, and they released the live album from that tour. So it's so good. It's so great to hear Clive Burr playing all those songs live. It's amazing. It's amazing to hear.
Yeah. Side 2 continues with Gangland. This was a Clive Burr gets a writing credit here for the first time and last time.
Mm-hmm.
Adrian Smith and Clive Burr wrote this one. Little Chicagoland.
Gangs.
You know, yeah, it's kind of, that's what the topic is like, dead men tell no tales and all that. It was these guys, they're very influenced by movies and books, and
oh yeah,
and they always have been, and it really kind of is infused through with their writing throughout. But this is a really solid track 3 for side 2. Track 3 is kind of where you bury the weak song, but Gangland's not a weak song in my mind.
Yeah, it's a it's another song that's gotten the treatment from Steve, and I don't know if Bruce or not, but Steve has definitely said, because this was the B-side to Run to the Hills single, and it was between this. No, I'm sorry. Total Eclipse was the B-side, but it was between Gangland and Total Eclipse, and they said whichever one we use as a B-side is not going on the album. And in hindsight, they've said we really should have put Gangland as the B-side and put Total Eclipse on the album, and so they kind of slided it in that way. But it's gotten that reputation, kind of like Invaders. But about a year ago, Adrian Smith went on YouTube, and he basically had his little home studio he was in, and he turned on Gangland, the track, and he played along with the whole song. And watching him play it, it gives you a different appreciation for it. But that song's not as bad as it gets a reputation for. The verses are more intense, verses. The chorus isn't the greatest, but it's not bad either. And there's just more in that, the whole beginning of that song with that drum thing he's doing. Man, they showcased him a lot on that album, I think, and I'm glad they did. I'm glad they did.
Yeah, I think when a band starts talking bad about some of their songs, there's a tendency for the fans to follow along with that and say, yeah, you're right, because these are their heroes. They're what?
Oh yeah,
they couldn't possibly be wrong about something.
Yeah.
And for me, Gangland, the only thing that Gangland suffers from is from being on an album with so many great songs. It's not fair to compare it to some of these other songs, but on another album, it might be one of the highlights.
I mean, look what it's sandwiched in between Run to the Hills and Hallowed Be Thy Name. I mean, two complete, if you ask the generic Iron Maiden fan to name 10 Iron Maiden songs, 2 of them are going to be Run to the Hills and Hallowed Be Thy Name. I mean, those are iconic Iron Maiden songs.
Yeah, exactly. And that brings us to the closer, Hallowed Be Thy Name, 7-minute epic. And I didn't really mention it for Number of the Beast, but at 4.5 minutes, Number of the Beast feels a lot more epic than it is time wise.
Is it only 4.5 minutes?
It's only a 4.5 minute song.
Oh my god! They pack a lot into it.
They really do. It just seems like it's just over 4.5. It's like 450, I think, and it's just not it's not a it just doesn't feel like an under 5-minute song. There's just so much going on in it. It just feels like the big epic, but you really come to the big epic at the end of the album with Steve Harris's Hallowed Be Thy Name. And this one starts slow and builds and builds and builds in intensity. And then you get you really get another great Bruce moment at the end of this where he's just like wailing out the title of the track,
Oh yeah. Yeah, this is the song I introduced my kids to Iron Maiden with. We were going on a hike, and we were driving in my little truck, and I turned it on, and I was literally telling them, like letting them hear the song, and then we went on a hike, and then I just told them the whole story. I literally went line by line. I'm like, the lyrics are so poetic, and so just the story of the whole song is just incredible, and like you said, musically, there's so many great dual lead lines throughout the song. The drumming is fantastic, and then like you said at the end where you get to that part where it's like dun 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 bum bum, and then they kind of build into that part you're talking about where Bruce is just singing out that chorus. The only thing about this song that sucks is that they kind of plagiarized some of it, some of the lyrics, and they got I don't know if you've ever heard the song Life's Shadow by Beckett.
I'm not
But
familiar with it.
it's just some random old band that Steve liked, and there's a lot of lyrics in there, I mean, that are almost verbatim in this song. And it's weird. That song's not nearly as good, but they used 2 bits out of that song for 2 different Iron Maiden songs later on. So they dealt with it, they figured it out, and they got it all. Because I took my kids to the Book of Souls tour. First time I took my kids to see him, and that was when the lawsuit was going on, and they didn't play it. And I was so disappointed because I really, after telling them the story and really building it up for them, I was really wanting them to hear it live. But my daughter got to hear it on the next tour with me. But man, yeah, that's probably, when you ask people, I'll say this about this song. A couple of years ago, I was talking to a friend of mine, and he said, "What would you say is your favorite?" I hate these questions, because I can see behind you got 1,000 CDs. You don't just have, it's not easy to pick. Sometimes it's not easy to pick your favorite song from one album.
Yeah.
So he goes, "What would you say is your favorite song?" And I went, "What do you mean? By a band, or just your favorite song of all time?" And I was like, where do you go with that? And I thought for a minute. I said, I just got to say "Hallowed Be Thy Name" by Iron Maiden. That's just, I love so many songs, probably just as much, but
yeah,
that was the first one that jumped in there, and I'm like, that counts for something too.
Yeah, I get that a lot from casual music fans that they have a clear favorite, so they just assume everybody has a clear favorite, and it's
yeah.
like, well, God, ask me on 10 different days, you're going to get 10 different answers.
Yeah, like at least narrow it down to a band or something. It's hard with Iron Maiden. It's hard with Iron Maiden just to go. I've got friends that have done rankings where they've went and ranked every single song, 168 or whatever. I'm just like, I can't even begin to think about doing that.
Yeah,
it's hard. That's a difficult thing.
It is. I mean, and I've done album rankings before where I've ranked albums or I've ranked songs from an album. And even then I have to preface it by saying, this is how I feel today, but this might not be how I feel tomorrow, or it might not be how I felt yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's easier to do it with that mindset.
Yeah.
Because some people are just like, no, this is in stone, man. I'm not, I will, like, maybe your new favorite album, you haven't heard it yet. So you never know. You never know. So.
And because we grow as people and we change as people over time. And so I know there are albums that I didn't rate very highly when I first heard them in 1981 that I think now are fantastic. They're masterpieces. I have artists that I used to hate, like actively hate, that now are among my favorites.
Yeah.
So it's an ever-changing thing, and as long as you go into it with that mindset, and mood plays a lot. I mean, mood plays a lot. If you have 2 songs that are basically a coin flip, whatever your mood is that day is going to determine which one goes in front.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So we come to the end of this album and the big epic closer, and all that we just talked about in terms of favorites. But I'm going to ask you if you had to name your top 5 records or songs on this album. I'm not going to ask you to put them in order, but just group your favorite 5 songs from the record.
Top 5. I think I could do that pretty simple. Let's see here. I say, I'll do it on my hand so I don't lose track here. I'll say "Children of the Damned," 22 Acacia Avenue, "Run to the Hills," "Hallowed Be Thy Name," and what else would I put in there? That's a tough one. I'm going to say "Invaders."
Okay, it's pretty good. I think we got a lot of overlap, as you'd expect. I got "Run to the Hills," "The Prisoner," "Hallowed Be Thy Name," "Number of the Beast," and "Children of the Damned."
Okay. I mean, you really can't go wrong with any of them.
I mean, there's eight songs on it, so you're going to leave out 3, and they're going to be good 3 because it's this is a good album top to bottom. And like I said,
absolutely,
we've gone through this. How often would you say you listen to Number? Do you listen to it monthly, every 6 months?
I don't know. It's kind of a mood thing. I get into moods where I'll listen to bands for months at a time, and like I've gotten on. I grew up small bit with AC/DC, and about 3 months ago, I ended up watching a live show by them, and I've just went insane listening to AC/DC. I mean, I've been buying albums and just crazy. So I know I listen to it. There's probably sometimes where I listen to it more often than others, and then sometimes where it's less, because sometimes you got into Maiden close to the same time I did, so we've heard these albums so many times through the years, and sometimes I wouldn't say I'm burned out. Like the song "Number of the Beast," I'm really kind of burned out on that song. But when I listen to it, just every now and then, I go, "Man, this song is fantastic." But that's kind of why I think I've gotten into where I think I love the new era of the band from from Brave New World on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird because I think that's probably why some of those albums are my favorites right now, because I haven't had 40 years with them or 30 years with them. It's been, because I went through a phase where I wasn't into Maiden as much for a while. And then I've discovered all these albums after they were out. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I listen to it every year at least.
Yeah.
Probably, I would say probably more than every 6 months. But there might be 6 months where I go and not listen to it too. So
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying too about the newer stuff too, because after Bruce's return, I didn't jump right back on board with them. It took me a while to get around to Brave New World and Dance of the Dead, and I still am finding new things every time I listen to those albums, because I haven't listened to them as much as Peace of Mind and Power Slave and all of them. But yeah, well, tell me this. You mentioned you heard Peace of Mind, then you got Live After Death. At what point did Number of the Beast appear in your collection?
I was actually having that conversation with somebody today before I was recording my episode for next week. And we were trying to figure it out. And I remember getting Live After Death. I remember getting Somewhere in Time, because that was the first new album they put out, right? Probably not too long after that. So it was probably 86. And I'm sure I would have just started going back and listening as that. I don't remember exactly, but I'm sure it would have been within that year.
Yeah. I think my tendency too was that when I found a new band that I liked and I got that first initial album, I would go forward with them. And if I was current, then I would start to go backward one at a time, because over time, there's more change. If you go right back to the beginning right away, it sounds nothing like Peace of Mind. But if you go back to Number of the Beast, it does sound a lot like Peace of Mind.
I made that mistake with Kiss, because I got into Kiss in the mid 90s or mid 80s when they were, Creatures of the Night, Lick It Up, Animalize, and Asylum. They're heavy. And then I went back and immediately started with the first album. It is nothing like that. But the other thing is hearing hearing Live After Death. 5 of the songs from this album are on there. There's only Invaders, Gangland, and Prisoner that aren't on there. So I had heard most of it, already.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
Yeah, I wish back then that I would have jotted everything down, that happened. This is when I got this. This is when I got that. That's when I heard this. And just all the different things that I've forgotten. So,
yeah. It was like, when you're growing up, that's just locked in your memory. You get older and stuff starts to slip out of your memory, and you go, oh, yeah, I used to be able to tell you the exact date that I bought that record and where I got it. That Peace of Mind album. I couldn't tell you the name of the store I bought it in. It might have been a Camelot. It might have been a Peaches. It might have been a mom and pop. I don't know. It was in a strip mall. That's all I know about it. But
man, I haven't seen a Camelot music in a long time.
At that time, though, probably for years after I bought it, I could have told you everything about it. I could have probably told you what other cassettes I looked at and thought about buying instead of that one. And but that just all kind of fades away over time. It's one of the bad things about not having a perfect memory.
Oh yeah. I do know that I got Somewhere in Time at a Kmart.
Okay,
I remember that.
Yeah, I think for the most part, I really stocked up on my Iron Maiden. Well, CD wise, I obviously used the record clubs to when I started.
Yeah, we all did.
But when it was cassettes, I was just moving forward with the band, and I might have got Power Slave at a Kmart or a Meyer or something.
Sure.
And yeah, it's but lifelong Iron Maiden fan now. I heard your show on Senjutsu, and are you still enjoying it as much as when you did that show? Your initial thoughts?
I think so. I like this. The bits that I didn't like as much still haven't grown on me yet, but it's there's a couple of songs that are a little too long in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I mean, it's amazing to me that 40 plus years into their career that they're putting something out that's that much quality. It amazes me. I can't, like, I didn't think Book of Souls was as great. And when I remember getting this, just thinking, well, there'll probably be some good stuff on it. And I remember listening, just the first listening going, I can't believe how good this is. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's one thing I'm always cognizant of, is this is a band that is as old as I am. They're older than me. And so they've been at this a lot longer than I've been listening to them. And, I'm going to take what they give me, and I'm going to enjoy what I like about it, and what I don't like about it, that's just
Yeah.
that's just the way it goes. I mean, nobody's, they don't have the same energy they had when they were 25. That's just not even fair to expect.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
in some respects, they've grown a tremendous amount. In other respects, maybe they've fallen into some habits over the years.
Yeah, for sure.
Like we all have.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
it's
good.
no. It's just I keep thinking whenever I think about that album, though, Steve Harris, like some of the best songs he's ever written are on that album, like 40 plus years in. It's just, I don't know. It's amazing. I'm sorry. I keep trying to talk. Sorry.
No, it's fine. That's why you're here. That's why we're here. Talk a little bit Iron Maiden. And
Yeah.
I am I'm really thankful that you came on the show, talk about your show a little bit, talk about this excellent album that we've both fallen in love with years ago, and have it has enriched our lives throughout the years. And that's what it's all about. It's about share. That's what this show's about. It's about sharing these conversations about great music, and with
Awesome.
as I always say, talking about great music with the people who made it and the people who love it.
Absolutely.
So thank you for your time. Where can people find you on the internet, Steve?
I'm probably most active on Twitter. I think my user it's at Uncle Steve Rock, I think is what it is. And they can email Iron Maiden podcast at Gmail, and my podcast is pretty much anywhere you'd listen. So
and it's called Uncle Steve's Iron Maiden Zone. If you type that into Twitter, you'll find him regardless of what his handle is. It'll pop up. And
yeah,
I know you're bound by the same thing I'm bound by in terms of Twitter handle character limitations.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Just like when I created my Twitter, I'm like, at Michael's Record it's not gonna fit.
Yeah.
At Michael's Records, no, the S won't fit, and I have more than one record, so that won't work. So ran into the same thing. So I ended up settling on at Mike's Records, which is not really what it's called, but hey, gotta have something.
You gotta do what you gotta do. Yeah.
Steve, thank you so much. I hope that some of my listeners and my viewers will check out your podcast. If you want to enjoy good conversation about Iron Maiden songs, about their albums, and about other bands, check out Uncle Steve's Iron Maiden Zone. Thank you so much for your time. I've had a great time.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. It's always fun to talk the music we love. Always fun. Thank you.